I was 27 when I finally realized I had to do something about my fear of public speaking. It was 2 days before a major pitch at my firm, and I was sitting in a quiet conference room, my fingers tapping a pen restlessly against a notepad. The glass walls felt so transparent that I wished I could vanish. My boss had asked me, commanded me, to lead the entire discussion with a group of new clients who could bring in a huge contract. The problem? Andrew, the ordinary me, was paralyzed by the mere idea of standing up there, having all those sharp gazes fixed on me. I had tried to steady myself by practicing lines in front of my bedroom mirror, yet my voice cracked every time. I couldn't imagine the voices in my head suddenly evaporating when I faced real, breathing people. I knew I had to rehearse one more time, so I opened my laptop and started reciting the pitch aloud. It should have been simple. Thank you for coming. My name is Andrew Finch, and I'm the lead consultant on this project. We're thrilled to share our vision but I lost momentum halfway through. The words collapsed into a tangle in my throat. My reflection on the screen was no help. It just stared back with tired eyes, as if to say, "You really think you're getting through this?" That's when I felt the stir of a different solution, one that had been lurking in the background of my thoughts for weeks. The notion had begun as a fleeting spark. Slip into the women's business suit that was hanging in my closet. A women's cut jacket, sleek pencil skirt, crisp blouse, and just the right pair of heels. It had started as a curiosity months ago, then became a comfort. When I put them on, I'd practice a sales call or an important presentation in front of my mirror at home. Something about wearing them transformed me into a different version of myself. I stood taller, spoke more clearly, and found some strange sense of courage. In my own mirror, that version of me was named Andrea. It seemed like an odd solution, a patch for my wounded confidence. Yet every time I slid into those clothes, Andrea took over. She was witty, poised, unafraid to meet her own reflection. My body language changed, shoulders back, chin high. If a neighbor knocked on the door in the middle of a practice session, Andrea answered without missing a beat, smiling politely. The way those outfits draped over me filled me with a kind of boldness I had never known in my day-to-day life as Andrew. But was I actually prepared to rely on that persona in a real, professional setting? In the moment, the idea was terrifying. I kept imagining the reactions of my boss, my coworkers, the potential clients. Yet I couldn't let go of the possibility. Sitting in the conference room, staring at the blank pages of my pitch outline, I realized I needed that assured presence. I needed Andrea. At least I needed the part of me that became fearless when I wore that suit and those heels. I pushed the thought away for the moment and went back to drafting bullet points. My boss, a no-nonsense woman named Carol, had made it clear that this was my shot. I'd been with the company for 3 years, quietly operating behind the scenes and producing reliable work. But a major client pitch would test me in front of everyone. I had known Carol since my first interview. She had glanced at my resume, then eyed me up and down and said, "You're talented, Andrew, but can you handle pressure?" At the time, I'd nodded meekly and assured her that I could. That must have been enough for her to hire me. Lately, though, she'd become aware that I shied away from confrontations. This pitch was her way of saying, "Prove to me you can stand in the spotlight." Eventually, I gathered my belongings, left the conference room, and headed home with a dull headache. I wanted to rest, but I couldn't escape the swirl of thoughts about the pitch. As soon as I unlocked my front door, I tossed my bag onto the couch, stepped into my bedroom, and found myself staring at the black garment bag in my closet. Inside was the suit, carefully chosen, tailored to my body. I stood there for a moment, a slight tremor in my hand as I slid it across the hanger. Could I really do this at the office? And if I did, would it be me presenting, or would it be Andrea? I remember the first day I discovered how different I felt in those clothes. It was about a year earlier. I'd been alone on a Saturday afternoon, reading an online forum where people discussed wearing clothes they felt best represented them, even if those clothes went against the norm of what others might expect. I was intrigued. Some posters spoke about how a piece of clothing could change their entire demeanor, how they felt more themselves or more liberated, depending on what they wore. I looked around my apartment. It was quiet. My neighbors were likely out, and I had no plans that evening, so I decided to experiment. I drove to a store 2 towns over, walked around with my heart pounding, picked out a stylish jacket, a matching skirt, and a pair of modest heels. That day, I felt like I was crossing some invisible boundary. When I got home and finally tried on the outfit, I didn't feel the shame or awkwardness I expected. Instead, I felt a surprising sense of relief, like stepping into a version of me that had always been waiting in the shadows. I looked in the mirror and saw someone elegant and strong. My posture changed. I tried on different expressions, a half smile or a slight tilt of the head. Each seemed more confident than I'd ever felt as Andrew. I thought about a suitable name for that person in the mirror. Andrea came to mind immediately. It felt right. Back in the present, I decided that maybe it would help to rehearse that day's pitch as Andrea. So I hung my shirt and tie on the rack, slipped on the blouse and jacket from my closet, zipped up the skirt, and finished the look with the heels. A jolt of self-assurance ran through me. I felt as though the tension in my shoulders melted away. I took a deep breath, opened my laptop, and read aloud. "Thank you for joining us today. I'm Andrea." I caught myself. That was not how the pitch was supposed to start. I tried again. "I'm Andrew Finch, lead consultant on this project. We're excited to share." My voice sounded calm, steady. I repeated each paragraph of the script, pacing in front of the mirror. The small living room lamp glinted off the glossy black heels. I swiveled on them and discovered I even liked the weight that transferred onto the balls of my feet. It almost forced me to carry myself upright. Whenever I tripped on a word, I paused, took a breath, and continued, reminding myself that Andrea wouldn't waver under pressure. I was mid-sentence when my phone buzzed. I glanced at it. My coworker Nina was calling. Nina was the type of person who exuded positivity no matter the circumstance. She and I had often worked together on smaller projects, and she'd always teased me about my shy nature. Yet her teasing was friendly enough that it never felt cruel. "Hey," I said, sinking onto the couch. "How's the pitch coming?" she asked. "Are you prepared for Monday?" "I'm trying." I paused, looking down at my outfit. "I'm practicing as we speak." Nina chuckled. "That's good. Carol's expecting great things. I can help you rehearse if you want. I have a free hour tomorrow morning." The idea of practicing with Nina before Monday both excited and terrified me. Still, it was probably necessary. "Sure," I said. "I'd appreciate that." "Great. I'll reserve a small conference room for us. Also, don't stress yourself out. You're better at this than you think." We ended the call, and I sat there, a swirl of emotions in my chest. As Andrea, I felt unstoppable. As soon as I considered stepping into the office as Andrew, though, I felt everything slip away. Which version of me would show up to that conference room tomorrow morning? It had to be Andrew, but my confidence was lacking unless I called on Andrea's presence. Sunday slipped by in a blur of constant worry. I tried more practice sessions at home, always dressed in that refined business attire. Each time I gained more stamina and more clarity in my voice. At night, however, I would take off the skirt, the jacket, the heels, transform back to plain Andrew. And with each step of returning to my usual clothes, I felt that intangible strength recede. Even brushing my teeth, I felt uneasy. A question ricocheted in my mind. Was I faking everything? Would I ever be able to handle life's pressures without hiding behind an alternate persona? Monday morning, I arrived at the office early and found Nina waiting by the coffee machine. She was wearing a dark blue blouse and black slacks. When she saw me, she gave me a bright smile and lifted 2 coffee cups. "Latte for you. Figured you might need it." "Thank you," I murmured, taking the cup with trembling hands. "Did you sleep?" she asked as we walked toward the smaller conference room. "Not much," I admitted. "I practiced a lot, though." She nodded. "Good. Let's see what you got." Inside the room, I set up my laptop on the table. Nina settled into a chair, arms folded, smiling encouragingly. My heart pounded. I tried to remember Andrea's posture, shoulders back, chin lifted, but I felt the old flush of nerves creeping up my neck. "All right, whenever you're ready," Nina prompted. I inhaled, exhaled, and began. "Thank you for coming. My name is Andrew Finch, and I'm the lead consultant on this project. We're excited to share—" My voice wavered slightly, but I kept going. I gestured to the bullet points on the screen, occasionally stumbling over a phrase. Nina's eyes stayed focused on me, and I found it surprisingly unsettling, as though I were performing for a crowd. I paused to clear my throat, then barreled on through the rest of the script. When I finally finished, Nina tapped her fingers thoughtfully. "You did fine, Andrew," she said, "but you seem tense. The content is all there, but your delivery felt unsure." I loosened my tie, struggling not to show my frustration. "I know. I'm nervous. I practiced at home and felt good, but now it's—" She looked at me curiously. "But now it's what?" I shrugged. "I guess I just freeze up." Nina stood and placed a hand gently on my shoulder. "You have a strong voice when you let yourself use it. Maybe try imagining yourself as someone else, like a persona that can handle pressure. Then step into that mindset when you're speaking." My eyes flicked to hers. The suggestion hit so close to my secret that I almost jolted. Did she suspect something? Her expression seemed genuinely innocent. I nodded slowly, trying not to betray anything. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. We wrapped up, and Nina assured me that I'd do well, but by lunchtime, my anxiety was back. As more coworkers filtered in, I avoided direct eye contact. Carol found me at my desk and gave a quick rundown of final details. The clients would arrive at 2:00 p.m., and I was to present promptly at 2:15. She reminded me to be confident, saying, "It's your time to shine." When the clock read 1:30, my nerves spiked. I retreated to the restroom, thankfully empty, and splashed water on my face, trying to coax out some fraction of Andrea's composure. I was Andrew in a standard men's business suit, but I started reciting the first lines of the pitch softly, focusing on my reflection in the bathroom mirror. "You can do this," I whispered. The Andrew in the mirror was pale, lips slightly parted in dread. Andrea would have replaced dread with determination. The memory of standing in front of my mirror at home, wearing the women's suit, steadied me a little. I tried to mimic that posture now, the same tilt of the chin, the same set of shoulders. I left the restroom and made my way to the conference room. Nina caught me outside the door. "Deep breath," she whispered, squeezing my hand. I nodded stiffly and walked in. Carol was already there, along with 5 people from the client side. I took my place at the head of the table, set up my slides, and forced a calm smile. The start of the presentation came out shaky, but after a few sentences, something clicked. A subtle shift in my mind conjured Andrea's voice, confidence, and unwavering gaze. My stance felt more assured. The words spilled out with surprising clarity. By the time I reached the final slide, I could see the clients nodding. I managed to even include a small joke about the unpredictability of market trends, which earned a polite laugh. When I finished, there was a smattering of applause, and Carol gave me a nod of approval. Relief washed over me in waves. I had managed it. Andrew had actually succeeded, or at least he had borrowed Andrea's presence long enough to pull it off. After the meeting ended and the clients left, Carol approached me with a rare smile. "Well done," she said. "I wasn't sure, but you showed me something today. Keep it up." Nina, standing nearby, flashed me a thumbs up. She mouthed, "You did great." I felt my cheeks grow warm but beamed back at her. That afternoon, I kept reviewing the entire experience in my head, while the rest of the office bustled around me. I wrestled with the complicated pride I felt. Part of me was genuinely thrilled that I'd handled a massive challenge. Another part was uneasy, aware that without Andrea's mental presence, I might have crumbled. Which side was really me? By evening, I decided to celebrate with a quiet dinner at my favorite Thai place near my apartment. I grabbed a small table in the corner, ordered curry and spring rolls, and let my mind wander. Dishes clinked, voices murmured around me, and I found myself replaying the details of the pitch. I still remembered my shaky start, how I was almost paralyzed until I conjured that persona. The server brought my food, and I thanked him softly. Before taking the first bite, I closed my eyes for a moment and imagined myself back in my apartment, wearing the fitted suit, the soft blouse. That recollection alone made me straighten in my chair. After dinner, I went home, changed into the outfit again, and practiced some of the small talk I'd overheard at work that day. I'd heard a group in the break room discussing the upcoming charity gala. Carol had decided to sponsor a table for our company, and Nina was urging everyone to attend. The very thought of a formal event, filled with fancy outfits and small talk with strangers, gave me chills. But practicing as Andrea, I found it easier to imagine gliding through the crowd. In the mirror, I tried a half smile, pitched my voice as though talking to a random guest at the gala, and said, "Hello, I'm Andrea. So nice to meet you. How are you finding the evening?" My reflection responded with that confident nod, as if to say, "Yes, of course this is possible." I snapped out of my reverie, realizing I was daydreaming about attending a formal event as Andrea. That would be a giant leap, but the possibility glimmered. Maybe I could experience a night where I walked into a social gathering without fear, armed with Andrea's boldness. It wouldn't be something I'd do lightly, though. I'd have to figure out how others might react and how I might handle their reactions. At work over the following weeks, a small rumor started circulating about the big event. The annual charity gala was a fancy affair that our company attended every year, but I'd never considered going. Nina cornered me by the coffee machine one morning in mid-October. "Hey, you're coming to the gala this year, right?" she asked brightly. I tried to hide my discomfort. "I'm not sure. Large parties aren't really my scene." She lifted an eyebrow. "Come on, Andrew, don't be such a hermit. It'll be good for you. Everyone's going, and Carol wants a strong turnout from the team. Plus, it's for a good cause. You'll have fun." I shrugged. "I'll think about it." "Good," Nina said. "We'll carpool if you decide to go." She walked off, leaving me with a fresh wave of nerves. A strong turnout from the team meant a room full of coworkers and business contacts. I'd have to make conversation, be personable. It was the kind of social event that turned me into a wallflower. Yet a tiny part of me whispered, Andrea could handle it with ease. That night, in my apartment, I kept picturing the scenario. The lavish venue, the swirling gowns, the crisp tuxedos, a swirl of music and chatter. If I tried to go as Andrew, I'd probably hover near the corner, chewing my lip until I could slip out unnoticed. But if I somehow attended as Andrea, how would that even work? Would people be shocked? Would they judge me? My heart pounded at the thought of stepping into such a public setting that way, but the notion lingered. I spent the next few days swinging between excitement and dread. Finally, I realized something about Nina that I hadn't fully acknowledged. She was open-minded and genuinely cared about me. She might be the only person at the office I could trust with my secret, or at least test the waters. After some careful thought, I decided to invite her over to my apartment under the guise of discussing the gala. If anyone might understand, it was her. On a Thursday evening, I tidied up my living room and texted Nina. "Want to swing by my place to talk about the gala? Maybe order a pizza?" She replied immediately with a thumbs up and said she'd be there in half an hour. When she arrived, she looked around curiously. "Nice place. I can't believe this is my first time seeing it," she said. I forced a chuckle. "Well, I don't host much. Let's sit in the living room." We settled on the couch, phone open to the pizza delivery app, deciding on toppings. After we placed the order, Nina turned to me. "So, about the gala, are you coming?" I swallowed. "Nina, there's something I need to tell you, and I need to trust that you'll keep it private." Her expression softened. "Of course, Andrew. I'll keep anything you share to myself." I inhaled slowly. "I have this other side of me," I began. "It helps me deal with anxiety and situations that terrify me. I dress differently, in women's business suits, for example. And when I do, I feel more confident, more capable. I call that version of me Andrea." Nina stared at me, her lips parted in mild surprise, but no shock or disgust. After a moment, she said, "Okay, so you cross-dress to feel more comfortable in stressful situations?" I nodded, relieved that she'd put it so plainly without judgment. "Yes. It's not just the clothes, though. It's like adopting a persona. When I'm Andrea, I don't freeze up. I don't hide in corners. I talk to people. I stand my ground." Nina's face warmed into a sympathetic smile. "And you're wondering if you should attend the gala as Andrea?" I let out a shaky breath. That idea's crossed my mind, but it scares me to even consider it. I don't want to cause a scene or get fired if the management disapproves. She reached over and took my hand, gently squeezing it. "Hey, I'm not an HR expert, but as far as I know, the company has a policy of inclusion. Carol might be surprised, but I doubt she'd fire you. Also, it's your life. If it makes you comfortable to present that way, you should. But are you ready to handle questions or stares?" I hesitated. That's what worries me. Sometimes if I just present as Andrew, I can fade into the background. Andrea doesn't exactly fade. Nina leaned back, tapping a finger on her knee. "You need to consider how you'll feel if people do ask personal questions. Some might be curious, some might be ignorant, but you might also feel incredible, like your real self is stepping out without apology. If that makes you happy, it's worth it." Her words made my chest tighten. I think it would feel good to stop hiding this part of me, but it's also scary. "It's big," Nina agreed, "and it's your call. I'll support you either way." I sat there, overwhelmed by relief that she was so accepting, but also consumed by the uncertainty of what to do next. Our conversation was cut short by the doorbell. The pizza had arrived, so we took a break to serve ourselves slices and a couple of sodas. We ate quietly for a few minutes, letting the conversation settle. Finally, Nina spoke again. "Listen, do you want to show me Andrea? If that might help you figure out if you're comfortable with me seeing you that way, maybe you'll be more ready for the public." My pulse drummed in my ears. Slowly, I nodded. "Just promise not to laugh," I said softly. She reached over, squeezed my hand once more. "I promise." I set down my pizza slice, wiped my hands on a napkin, and disappeared into my bedroom. My nerves were rattling, but I moved on autopilot. I selected the precise outfit: a charcoal gray blazer, matching skirt, a silk blouse in a soft cream color, and a pair of black pumps. My hands trembled slightly as I put them on, but once everything was in place, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Andrea stared back, calm and composed. I took a moment to brush my hair into a neat style, shorter than I'd want for Andrea, but I combed it in a way that softened my appearance. A dab of lipstick, a discreet shade, and I was ready. Stepping back into the living room felt surreal. Nina was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up at the sound of my heels and froze, eyes going wide. I braced myself for her reaction. "Wow," she said softly, setting her phone aside. She stood up slowly, then walked around me as though taking everything in. Andrea, you look stunning. I can see your posture is totally different." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "Thank you. I feel different." Nina gestured at the couch. "Come sit. Let's talk more comfortably." I nodded and crossed the room, mindful of how I placed each foot to maintain balance in the heels. Though I'd practiced walking in them many times, I always took care. She watched me with an encouraging expression, as if taking this all in stride. When I sat, she studied me for a moment. "I can see how your demeanor changes. You look more relaxed, ironically, and your voice sounds more confident." I smiled. "That's how it feels too. Like all the tension Andrew carries in his shoulders melts away. Andrea doesn't worry as much about what people think." Nina nodded. "Well, if this is how you feel best, then you should consider going to the gala like this. But don't forget that it's a very public step. People may react. Some will be supportive. Some might not know what to say. But I'll be with you." I felt tears of relief prick my eyes. The idea that at least one person would have my back was everything. I reached for her hand. "Thank you," I whispered. She gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "And for what it's worth, you look amazing. You could absolutely rock a formal dress too, if that's something you want. Or you can wear a more businesslike outfit, whatever makes you most comfortable." After Nina left that night, I walked around my apartment as Andrea, letting the surge of gratitude and possibility wash over me. The next morning, though, when I went back to the office in my usual men's suit, I felt a subtle disappointment. I was Andrew again, quiet, purposeful, but overshadowed by my shy instincts. Nina shot me a knowing smile when we crossed paths in the hallway, as if to say, "I see the real you underneath." A week before the gala, I made my decision. I asked Nina if she'd accompany me on a shopping trip to find something suitable for Andrea to wear. She jumped at the chance. We chose a weekend afternoon, drove out of town to avoid running into co-workers or acquaintances, and found a boutique with a wide range of formal attire. Walking into that store as Andrew, I felt a swirl of excitement and trepidation. Nina, noticing my discomfort, took the lead, explaining to a helpful sales associate that we were looking for a formal outfit, something classy, with a feminine cut, possibly a dress or a sleek suit. The sales associate smiled warmly. "We can definitely help with that. Would you prefer to browse alone or have me bring suggestions to the fitting room?" I glanced at Nina, who mouthed, "Go for it." I turned to the associate. "Suggestions would be great. Thank you." I must have tried on at least half a dozen outfits. Some were dresses with elegant lines, others were two-piece suits that had more of that business chic vibe. In the fitting room, I felt both exhilarated and exposed. Each time I stepped out to show Nina, she nodded seriously, giving me honest feedback. "That color's a bit too bold. It might draw attention away from your face." Or, "This cut is beautiful on you, but do you feel comfortable moving in it?" By the end, we narrowed it down to two: a midnight blue sheath dress that hugged my frame in a flattering but modest way, and a tailored black suit with an ivory blouse. Both felt distinctly Andrea. It was a tough choice, but ultimately, I decided on the suit. Somehow, Wearing that sleek jacket and perfectly tailored pants was the perfect blend of formal and powerful. I would be dressed for a gala, but in a style that gave me the confidence I needed. On the night of the event, Nina and I agreed to meet at my place beforehand. She showed up in a sparkling silver gown with a tasteful slit, looking glamorous. I was in my bedroom applying light makeup. I had practiced discreet techniques, enough to even out my complexion and highlight my features without it being over the top. I'd decided on a short wig that matched my natural hair color, styled in a neat bob to give a feminine silhouette. Heart pounding, I stepped into the living room where Nina waited. She clapped her hands in delight. "You look amazing," she said, eyes bright with genuine admiration. I smoothed the lapel of my jacket, my nerves jangling. "Thanks, I'm trying not to panic." She came over and straightened the collar of my blouse a little. "You got this. Remember, you're free to be whoever you are tonight. If anyone has a problem with it, that's their issue." We took a rideshare to the venue, a grand hotel downtown with marble floors and towering chandeliers. As we entered, the swirl of music and laughter enveloped us. Men in tuxedos, women in gowns, and groups already deep in conversation. My stomach clenched, and I instinctively reached for Nina's arm. She gave me a reassuring nod. The moment we stepped onto the main floor, heads turned. Some recognized Nina, but their eyes flicked to me curiously. I held on to Andrea's posture, lifting my chin and looking around with poised confidence. My pulse was wild, but outwardly I forced a calm composure. Carol was across the room, chatting with a circle of guests. She spotted us, and for a split second, her eyes widened. I could almost see the gears turning in her head. I prepared for the worst: shock, disapproval, or confusion. Instead, she excused herself from the conversation and approached us. Her gaze swept over me before a neutral, polite smile settled on her face. "Good evening, Nina," and she paused. I mustered a smooth, quiet voice. "Andrea," I said, extending a hand. Carol hesitated a beat, then gave it a firm shake. "Andrea, it's nice to see both of you. Enjoy the gala." I exhaled, feeling tension drain from my shoulders. She didn't seem upset, though she was clearly processing. She nodded at me one last time, then returned to her group. That initial encounter made me hopeful that the night wouldn't be a disaster, and for a while, it went well. Nina introduced me to a few acquaintances. Some recognized me from the office, some didn't. The ones who realized who I was mostly blinked in surprise, but quickly continued conversation as if nothing was amiss. The more I mingled, the more I felt that unstoppable confidence building. I found myself discussing market trends with a couple of accountants from a partner firm. I even told a lighthearted anecdote about the pitch I had given weeks ago. My audience laughed warmly. Andrew could never have done that so effortlessly. Then came a pivotal moment. I was sipping a sparkling drink, non-alcoholic because I wanted to stay sharp, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning, I found myself face to face with a longtime co-worker, Martin, from our finance department. He rarely talked to me at the office, but we had always been cordial in passing. That night, his expression was guarded. "So," he said slowly, "should I call you Andrew or Andrea?" My stomach clenched. I took a moment to steady myself. "Andrea tonight," I replied, mustering a polite half-smile. He nodded, his gaze flicking over my clothes. "You pull it off well," he said carefully. "I just didn't know this side of you." I stiffened, bracing for something hurtful. "Not many people do." He cleared his throat. Sure. Well, you look confident. I just wanted to say hi. So, hi. I hope you're enjoying the night." Relief washed over me. "I am. Thanks, Martin. Nice talking to you." He gave me a small, almost apologetic nod, then walked away. It wasn't a long conversation, and it wasn't exactly warm, but it wasn't cruel either. Sometimes, neutral acknowledgement is all one can hope for. The highlight of the night came an hour later, during the silent auction portion of the gala. The main room dimmed, a speaker took the microphone, and a hush fell. Nina and I stood near the back, scanning the displayed items. A woman next to us turned and said, "Lovely suit. Is it custom?" She was elegantly dressed, with a silver headband and matching earrings. Caught off guard, I blinked. "Thank you. Yes, it's tailored. I got it recently for this event." She gave a small nod of approval. "Great taste. I prefer wearing suits to dresses myself. More comfortable and still plenty stylish." I smiled, feeling a burst of validation. Exactly. Shortly after, I excused myself to step outside for a moment of fresh air. The adrenaline had been pounding through my body for hours, and I needed to clear my head. I found a small balcony area, mostly deserted, overlooking the city lights. I gripped the railing and took a steadying breath, letting the night air soothe me. Footsteps sounded behind me, and I turned to see Nina approaching. "You all right?" she asked gently. I nodded, though a wave of emotion churned in my chest. "This is a lot," I said, exhaling slowly. "But I'm proud that I did it." She placed a hand on my shoulder, her face reflecting the city lights. "You're doing so well tonight. I've never seen you this comfortable in public." I let a small laugh escape. "Right? Even I'm amazed. It's Andrea, you know. She's everything Andrew isn't." Nina hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I see a lot of overlap, though. The jokes you made with those accountants? That witty side is still you, Andrew. I think you just needed a channel to let it out." I looked into her eyes, feeling gratitude and also a tinge of sadness. "Maybe, but what happens after tonight? I can't wear a formal suit to the office every day. I can't show up as Andrea for every meeting." She gave my shoulder a small squeeze. "That's something you have to sort out in your own time. Maybe Andrea isn't just about clothes. Maybe it's a part of you that you can tap into whenever you need. And if sometimes you do want to present physically as Andrea, maybe that's an option too. The world won't end." I nodded, letting her words sink in. The question still hung in my mind. Who am I really once the clothes come off? Could Andrew ever be as brave as Andrea without relying on suits, heels, and lipstick? We stayed on the balcony for a few more minutes, until the cool breeze made us shiver. Then we headed back inside to rejoin the gala. By the end of the night, I had spoken more words to co-workers and strangers than in the previous year combined. Some people looked at me with curiosity, but I never encountered outright hostility. The music slowed to a gentle waltz, and Nina teased me about dancing. I declined. My feet were starting to ache from the heels, and I preferred not to push my luck. Still, I couldn't wipe the smile from my face. When I finally got home, I carefully removed the wig, the suit, the makeup. The reflection in the mirror shifted from Andrea back to Andrew. My hair was slightly disheveled, my cheeks still flushed. I stared at my reflection for a long while. This was me, too. The same face, the same eyes. But the sparkle of confidence felt like it was fading. I wondered how long it would be until I put on the suit again. A few days later, the office was abuzz with chatter about the gala. While no one openly confronted me, a few folks dropped polite comments here and there. Carol called me in for a quick chat. She closed the door to her office and offered me a seat. "I just want to say," she began a bit stiffly, "that I appreciate you showing up to the gala. It was obviously unique to see you dressed differently, but you handled yourself well. I hope you felt comfortable." I swallowed. "I did mostly. I'm aware some people might have questions." Carol's gaze held a neutral steadiness. Your personal choices are your own. We value your work here. Keep delivering results, and we're good. If you encounter any problems or harassment, let me know." I exhaled, shoulders dropping a bit. "Thank you." She nodded, shifting a stack of papers on her desk. "That's all. Keep up the good work." I left her office feeling both relieved and uncertain. So it was out in the open now, but no one seemed to be condemning me for it. That was a weight off my chest, yet it didn't solve my deeper questions. Who was I, and how was I supposed to navigate life? It was as though I had two distinct realities. Andrew by day, shy and mild. Andrea by evening, strong and outspoken. In the following weeks, I found myself slipping back into Andrew's routine. But I noticed subtle changes. During a tense department meeting, I squared my shoulders, remembering how Andrea stood and voiced a concern about an unrealistic deadline. My voice came out steadier than usual, and I didn't back down even when a manager tried to dismiss my worry. Afterwards, Nina caught my eye from across the room and gave me a small smile. On a Friday afternoon, she stopped by my desk. "Hey, let's grab dinner tonight," she said. "We can talk about how you've been feeling since the gala." I liked that she was direct. "Sure," I replied. "Sounds good." That evening, we ended up at a cozy Italian restaurant. Over plates of pasta and garlic bread, Nina asked how I was doing. "I'm all right," I said. "Work is less stressful now that I know Carol won't freak out over Andrea. But I'm not sure if I should be more open or keep things as they are." She twirled her fork in the pasta. "Maybe just let yourself be flexible. Some days you might want to present as Andrea, other days not. You don't have to declare something permanent. It's your choice every day." Her words resonated, but they also reminded me of the lingering question I always had. If I'm reliant on Andrea's clothes for confidence, am I missing the chance to grow that confidence as Andrew? I voiced that worry to Nina, and she said, "I don't think it's a crutch. It's just an expression of who you are. If you want to build up Andrew's courage, that might come with time, but it doesn't mean Andrea disappears. You don't have to choose one or the other forever." I nodded, sipping my water slowly. I knew I would still face moments when I froze, but maybe remembering what Andrea embodied could help me push through even without the attire. Back at the office the following week, a new challenge arose. A high-stakes client meeting in another city. Carol was sending 2 employees for an on-site visit. Nina and I were chosen. We'd be spending a few days in Chicago, meeting with a branch of potential partners. We needed to give a detailed presentation, have multiple dinners, and attend some social gatherings where networking was key. When we arrived in Chicago, the first day was crammed with introductions and scheduling. That evening, I found myself in the hotel lobby with Nina, checking the next day's agenda. A working lunch, a site tour, then cocktails with the client's leadership. Nina gave me a nudge. "Might be an Andrea night," she teased, half smiling. I laughed under my breath, but she wasn't entirely wrong. The thought of cocktail hour with a group of unfamiliar executives set my heart pounding. "Yeah," I murmured. "Maybe it would help." The next evening, before the cocktail event, Nina and I retreated to our rooms to change. I stared at the clothes laid out on my bed, a standard gray suit for Andrew, or the sleek navy dress I had thrown in my suitcase at the last minute, uncertain if I'd dare wear it. After a moment's hesitation, I went for the dress. It was knee-length, with a gentle V-neck, professional but undeniably feminine. I applied discreet makeup and tidied my hair, then stepped into the hallway. Nina emerged from her room in a burgundy blouse and pencil skirt. She took one look at me and grinned. "Let's knock them dead," she said. We headed to the cocktail lounge. The room gleamed with polished floors, city lights shining through tall windows. Waiters circled with trays of drinks. Groups of people stood chatting. Nina and I approached the cluster of executives we were supposed to impress. My nerves simmered. But once again, that wave of calm presence I associated with Andrea rolled over me. I introduced myself as Andrea, shaking hands firmly, smiling. I was able to guide the conversation toward relevant topics, ask intelligent questions, and even crack a small joke that made an executive chuckle. At one point, Nina stepped aside to take a phone call, leaving me alone with a sharp-eyed older gentleman. He cocked his head and said, "You're quite poised, Andrea. Have you always been this good at networking?" I allowed a small, polite smile. Networking can be challenging, but I've grown into it. When something matters, I make sure to bring my best. After we parted ways, I drifted toward a quieter corner, scanning the room. In the reflection of a tall mirrored wall, I saw a woman with a neat hairstyle and a confident expression, standing tall in her navy dress. A momentary pang of longing shot through me. I wished that sense of empowerment wasn't fleeting, that I could tap into it any time, whether or not I was wearing heels and lipstick. But I also recognized that being Andrea had opened doors I never would have dared open as Andrew. The trip concluded with the clients and executives expressing strong interest in partnering with us. Carol even sent a congratulatory email praising the professional impression we made. On the flight home, Nina and I sat side by side, exhausted but pleased. She dozed off halfway through the flight, and I stared out the window at the clouds. My mind churned. Was this my future? Shifting between Andrew and Andrea as circumstances demanded? Or would I eventually need to unify them somehow? Back at the office, life resumed its regular pace, yet everything was subtly altered. People treated me with a mixture of respect and curiosity. The evening of the gala had opened a door, and some days I would catch co-workers whispering, only to have them stop when I passed. I tried not to let that bother me. Nina's words echoed in my head. If it makes you comfortable, do it. One afternoon, Carol requested a meeting. This time, she came straight to my desk. "Andrew," she said, "my office, please." My heart dropped, but I followed her. Once inside, she closed the door. "I need your input on something," she said, folding her arms. "We have another major presentation in 2 weeks. There's a chance to impress some new partners. I want you to handle it again because you did so well last time. The question is, would you prefer to do it as Andrew or Andrea?" My face warmed in surprise. "You're giving me the choice?" She sighed, then nodded. "Look, I've spoken to HR, and we don't see a problem if you choose to present as Andrea. We do value a professional appearance, but that includes suits, dresses, whatever. You would just need to keep it in line with standard business attire." I was momentarily stunned. "I appreciate the support," I managed. She gave me a tight smile. "You're good at what you do, Andrew. The rest is details." Then she handed me a folder with the pitch outline. "We need this ready soon. Let me know if you need any resources." That evening, at my apartment, I sat on my sofa with the folder open on my coffee table. The pitch was big, an opportunity that could define my place in the company. I stared at the typed paragraphs, each bullet point detailing the product line, the strategy for market penetration. I knew how well I could deliver a presentation if I let Andrea lead. But what if I tried to deliver it as Andrew, using the confidence I'd slowly been building? I paced around, the last rays of daylight casting orange across the apartment floor. Eventually, I stood before my bedroom mirror. Half of me wanted to reach for the navy skirt suit hanging in my closet. The other half wanted to see if Andrew could handle the challenge without physically transforming. I changed into a simple men's dress shirt and slacks, then returned to the mirror, shoulders back, chin up. I began reading the pitch aloud. My voice faltered at first, but I forced myself to keep going, imagining the calm that Andrea exuded. I recalled the time I'd introduced myself to that group of executives in Chicago. My stance grew more assured. By the end of the pitch, I felt I had delivered it with relative poise. A tiny thrill zipped through me. Could I manage this? Could Andrew stand alone, not melting into the background, not stumbling over every other sentence? Maybe so. On the other hand, I could see the difference in how I felt wearing the clothes that channeled Andrea's energy. The question remained, which path did I want to take for the actual presentation? I decided to practice daily for the next 2 weeks, wearing my regular men's attire, but summoning that mental version of Andrea's boldness. Some days it was easier than others. Occasionally I'd slip into the female suit just to see if I could compare the experiences. Ultimately, I recognized that I didn't have to banish Andrea to prove a point. She was part of me, but I also didn't have to rely on her clothes to function professionally if I didn't want to. The morning of the presentation arrived, and I dressed as Andrew, a crisp white shirt, navy tie, charcoal gray slacks. I inspected myself in the mirror, adjusting the tie knot carefully. My reflection stared back. Andrew's face, yes, but with a composure I'd rarely seen before. I felt that flicker inside, the knowledge that if I needed to, I could call upon the essence of Andrea. Even in these clothes, I had begun to absorb her confidence. Standing in front of a small audience of potential partners, I introduced myself as Andrew Finch, voice steady, posture sure. I noticed Nina by the door, smiling faintly. Carol was near the back, arms folded, nodding in quiet approval. As I moved through the slides, I felt a sense of control. My nerves were there, but they no longer dictated my actions. I reached a point in the deck that required a challenging explanation about budget allocations. That used to be the moment I would stutter or lose track of my thoughts. But now, I took a breath, squared my shoulders, and delivered it clearly. Andrea's voice echoed in my mind, but I was also sure this was me, Andrew, standing firmly on my own 2 feet. When the presentation wrapped up, there was applause. I heard someone from the audience exclaim, "That was thoroughly convincing." Nina caught my eye, gave me a discreet thumbs up, and mouthed, "Good job." Carol nodded in my direction, a hint of a smile on her face. Afterwards, as people filed out to mingle, Carol approached me. "That was impressive," she said quietly. "You've grown a lot these past few months." I thanked her, feeling warmth spread through my chest. Nina joined us, and Carol gave a small nod to both of us before leaving to talk to one of the prospective partners. Nina turned to me, a playful glimmer in her eyes. "You see, you managed this just fine." I let out a breath, smiling widely. "Yeah, I guess I've learned something about myself." She inclined her head. "Both versions of you are strong. Don't forget that." We parted ways, and I returned to my desk, noticing that my shoulders felt light. I sat down, scanning emails, letting the magnitude of what I'd just accomplished sink in. For the first time, I believed that Andrew, plain, ordinary Andrew, could handle life's toughest moments, even if it took effort and practice. And Andrea was not some separate entity to be dismissed. She was an integral part of me, a source of powerful assurance. Maybe the lines weren't as clear-cut anymore. Perhaps they didn't need to be. That evening, I got home, dropped my keys on the kitchen counter, and glanced at the closet. The suit jackets and skirts hung neatly alongside my usual shirts and trousers. It struck me that no matter which outfit I put on, the courage existed within me. Clothes were simply a vehicle to reveal what was already there. Some nights, I'd still feel the pull to slip into Andrea's attire. Let the heels nudge me into a more confident stance. Let the refined silhouette remind me that I could face the world. Other times, I'd be Andrew in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, practicing the small steps of boldness I'd learned to carry. In bed, I stared at the ceiling, remembering the swirl of fear that once gripped me at the thought of speaking up or even going on a date. The memory made me smile. I hadn't gone on many dates recently, but I no longer felt the same crushing weight of dread at the idea. Maybe soon I'd take that leap, ask someone out, see if Andrew could charm them, knowing that Andrea's spark was never too far away. The question remained, who am I when the clothes come off, when I'm just me? And could I learn to be as brave as Andrea? I think I was finally beginning to see that the answer was yes. As my eyes drifted shut, I recalled that quiet moment at the gala, looking in the mirror and realizing that this confidence was more than fabric or lipstick. It belonged to me. Even when I stood in the plainest of clothes, I was both Andrew and Andrea, and I was all right with that. I didn't need to declare anything final. I would keep growing in my own way day by day, step by step. And in the meantime, I could face life, boardroom pitches, social events, or even just casual afternoons, knowing that the boldness I once only found in Andrea was gradually becoming part of Andrew too. The next morning I got up, dressed for work in a simple shirt and slacks, and took a moment by the front door. I caught my reflection in the mirror and saw Andrew looking back, a hint of calm in his posture, not the old fear. I straightened my collar, gave myself a quick nod, and thought, "You've got this." Because I did. Clothes or not, the courage was there inside me. Andrea might have sparked it, but Andrew could carry it forward. And with that final thought, I stepped outside, ready to face whatever the day would bring.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.